We do prioritize our work, but we also prioritize our mental health.
That's incredible. And I know not everyone listening is, of course, creating their own, cool report writing software programs, but I know a lot of school psychologists who have a private practice on the side or, these other things. And I love the term that you use, that these things are usually meant to be bucket fillers. Great. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Prepared School Psych Podcast. Today, I'm honored to have two guests here with me, Lina and Tyler Kitson, both co-founders of Copy Paste Report. Tyler is a nationally certified school psychologist who works as a school psychologist in the Olathe, did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Olathe Public Schools in Kansas. He has volunteered at both the state and national level within school psychology. He currently serves as the chair of the National Association of School Psychologists Practice Model Committee, as well as serves as the Northeastern Regional Director and webmaster of the Kansas Association of School Psychologists. Tyler is someone who finds it fun to use Excel for making life better in every way. Lina is a nationally certified school psychologist who works as a school psych also in the same school district. You may remember her from a previous podcast episode with me. She currently serves as the past president of the Kansas Association of School Psychologists and is the incoming NASP Kansas delegate. Lina enjoys thinking of creative ways to make life easier for others and is referred to as the queen of spreadsheets by her coworkers. Tyler, welcome to the Prepared School Psych Podcast, and Lina, welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Lina, last time we chatted, your current favorite TV show at the time was the Bravo reality show Summer House. Are you still in that one, or are you working on a new show right now?
Oh, love Summer House. They are filming their newest season right now, so I'm very excited about that. But currently we're watching together. It's also a Bravo show. It's called Below Deck. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
So we finished the original, and then so now we're on the Med. So they go in the Mediterranean. So it's very fun. I feel like I know a lot about yachts. Even though I really don't know anything about yachts, we would pass by water and we're like, oh, is that a yacht? Does that consider it a yacht? So we're very proficient in yachting.
Wonderful. So Tyler, would you choose that as your favorite TV show right now as well?
I am obviously watching the same show, but I'm going to go a little different and say Love Island. We kind of switch back and forth between Below Deck and Love Island. And we've watched literally every single version, the US, the UK, Australia. So we are currently watching the UK version. And then there's a new version of USA that we'll be watching once we finish some of the Below Deck. So there's never enough.
No, I will say my favorite Bravo show, and I have gone all the way back to the beginning, is anything related to 90 Day Fiancé.
Love that. Yes. Yes.
So you almost have to either decide to quit your job or just be a Bravo person. There's so many shows to watch. It's hard to keep up with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's a good problem to have.
It is. It is. Well, we are here to talk about your wonderful tool, Copy Paste Report. So I'm curious, at what point in each of your professional journeys did you become interested in even doing something like creating a tool to help with report writing? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of this stemmed from just doing this in our own practice. As you mentioned at the beginning, we're both practitioners. So it really wasn't envisioned as a tool for people outside of just us and our teams. So we created just some things that made our lives easier. And as we started to build more and more tools that were making our lives easier, we said to ourselves, is this something that we not only should provide to our teams, but that other people would like? And that's when we kind of got the idea to form a business. And Lina came up with the brilliant idea of Copy Paste Report, CPR.
I love that acronym.
Yeah, absolutely. And it started very small. We had only about 7 to 10 different measures that we had. And people were giving us really good feedback. And we were like, okay, maybe this could be a thing. But we didn't want to spend very much money at the time because we didn't know if it would be successful. And here we are today, several years later, with over 100 measures and many additional tools.
And we just really love Excel. I mean, that's something that we just genuinely enjoy doing different spreadsheets, different kind of ways to automate things. And it just kind of was a natural progression to what we already do. Because, school sites, we all have our own little tools to help each other or ourselves do things a little bit faster. And so that just kind of started with just our tools that we were using on a daily basis.
That's incredible. Well, what has been some of those biggest challenges that both of you have faced when developing the copy paste report, and how did you overcome them?
So we're not business people, we're school psychologists. We had no idea about anything to do with website design, with advertising, with social media, and we're still very much new to that. And so the biggest challenge was, how are we going to market our product in a professional way? How do we create a website that looks like a product is actually legitimate and not something that's kind of shady or not, good? And so we were able to actually get some really good feedback from one of our good family friends, that he looked at the first version of the website and he said, well, this is really, really bad, which we're very grateful for, because then we kind of took a step forward, and I had to learn a little bit of coding, a little bit of website design to really kind of create what we have right now. And I'm very proud of what we have right now. It's still a learning process because it's not as intuitive as the little GoDaddy website that we had before, for me to be able to update and stuff, the animations and all that. But anyway, that was really a big, big hurdle for us. And we're kind of still learning and making sure that it's progressing in the right way.
Tyler, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely has been our biggest hurdle is making a website and something that people can go to and easily understand what the product is. Everyone's time is limited. So you need something that within like literally under a minute, they can understand what your product is and if it would be good for them. And as Lina said, we had built a website that we thought sounded good to us, but then to an outsider, it was who didn't know anything about school psychology. They're like, I don't understand your product. I don't understand what you're selling. And so that helped us to really narrow down the focus as to what we wanted to do on our current website. The other, I think, difficult thing has been managing the difference in type of computers that people have. Everyone has a different computer type. They have a different security system on their computer. They have different expectations in their district for what they can and can't download. So that has been a little difficult to navigate because we don't know every single computer and every single version of Excel and Microsoft that exists. So we're always working with our customers and making sure that if they're not able to get it figured out, we work with them to say, hey, if it didn't work, that's okay. We'll give you your money back. But I think we've gotten a lot better about it over the years.
Well, I mean, we're just a two woman man show. Like, we're the IT, we're the customer service, we're the social media. Like and I love that about our little team that we have, but it is definitely a difficulty managing all that. And one of the other things too is, when we initially created a copy paste report, we were like, we would be lucky if we had one person purchase the product.
Mhm.
And the way we kind of thought through it, it was like, okay, we're going to share what we use every day, our vision of how tools should be used with the customers. But then we kind of had to rethink it and think, well, not everybody does things our way. We have to think more globally and kind of do things in different ways that people might utilize them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're still learning. We're still kind of changing our tools, updating them. We have 3.0, which, we've gone through several versions and updates. And so continuing to learn and continue to get.
That's a lot I do a lot of trainings where we look at different pieces of software programs and assess, especially things that are Excel based. Just going back to what you were sharing, Tyler, a lot of times we're like, oh, it's something about your particular computer and your version of Excel and this program. And I always think how amazing it is for people who are creating these products to try and figure out, how do we make this accessible to all of these different people. And like you mentioned, so many different places I will go to, and districts are like, oh, yeah, we're not allowed to download anything on our own.
Yeah.
We have to wait for tech to be okay with these types of things. So I definitely see that on my end with a lot of that frustration that comes with school psychologists. Well, I'm curious, as everyone heard in the introduction, you two are very busy. You are both school psychologists. You're both really involved in your state association and our national organization. And oh, by the way, you also run a business. And somehow you have time to watch Bravo shows too. So, what are those tips that work for both of you to kind of keep this? I'm not a big fan of the word balance, but like that harmony around we got to work on this, we need to work on this, and we need to take care of ourselves and our relationship as well.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we implemented was actually in this room. We decided to have our own business meeting on a weekly basis. So we come in here and we strategize and we talk about what we need to prioritize for that next week and the next month. And then, so that's kind of like long term. And then on a daily basis, when we get home from work, one of us, while maybe one is doing some cleaning, the other person is doing work on the business or cooking, and the other person is doing business. So we really balance that time where if the other person is doing something and that's helping our life in the home, the other person's working on the business. And then when we're done, we get to spend that time in the evening watching Bravo.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved. First, we were and we still are very excited and, very kind of gung ho about this. But at first, all we were doing outside of work was working on the business, especially in the summer or if we had breaks or weekends. And quickly we realized that that's not going to work. That was kind of wearing us down. We want this to be like a bucket filler for us rather than something like an addition. And while this grew beyond what we ever thought it would be, we realized, like Tyler said, we have to have a schedule. We have to have a time that we need just for us. So really, I think what it all comes down to is just communicating with each other and saying, hey, are you okay doing this while I do this? Let's set this amount of time on this amount of days to do this. And this is our goal. And we also really kind of, what Tyler said, the business meetings, but we also created like this little office for us. And while we don't always come here to do the work, but it is very, very helpful because of just, this is what our headspace is at right now. And we're working on our business where we're doing. So this summer, I was really, really wanting to finish the ADOS, adding the ADOS to our program. If, those that understand ADOS, it's a very complex tool. And it took me a very, very long time to figure out how to do that to be beneficial. Anyway, I kind of drove myself a little crazy this summer and would wake up really, really early and then just kind of hammer at it. And again, I needed to step back to doing that because that was kind of like hindering my sleep and my stress level. So I think really communicating and kind of checking in on each other and making sure that we're feeling good, we're enjoying this.
And just to add on to what Lina said kind of at the end, since the summer is where we do the bulk of our work, because we actually have all day to work on it, we set like a schedule for each other. We say, hey, let's finish by 2 p.m. today, and then let's enjoy the rest of the day or something. So we do prioritize our work, but we also prioritize our mental health.
That's incredible. And I know not everyone listening is, of course, creating their own, cool report writing software programs, but I know a lot of school psychologists who have a private practice on the side or, these other things. And I love the term that you use, that these things are usually meant to be bucket fillers. And so, making sure that they continue to be that and not, draining our energy to a place where all of a sudden, our mental health is of concern there. Well, we've talked about it a little bit. So tell me about this amazing tool, Copy Paste Report. What makes this tool unique from other report writing software programs? And what are you hoping like this tool will do to help transform work for school psychologists?
So yeah, it's always a little difficult to describe what it is because it's evolved so much, but really we had kind of an elevator pitch. It's a comprehensive tool that can enhance your daily life as a school psychologist, resource teacher, speech language pathologist, social worker. And at first, it started out as kind of a report writing tool, but it is so much more than that. Yeah, we do have over 100 measures, but we also have other tools like behavior data collection, FBA. We have caseload management. We have on-task observations. We have recommendations. We have
Parent interview.
parent interview. And so it's not just because school psychologists, I mean, we know the practice model, right? We want to practice as broadly as we can. And our vision was to include as many tools as we can in this so that school psychologists can utilize their time practicing comprehensively within the practice model.
And as far as our addition tools, the thing that we like in my own personal practice, I found replicating a lot of things, but slightly changing them for each student. So I was spending so much time, like if I did an FBA for a student, I would recreate the whole process. I would do a whole new spreadsheet for the student. I would enter in all the data. I would have to go individually analyze everything. And it just took so much time to actually get down to what I needed to have, which was the results. That's what we really care about is what are we going to do for this kid? And what we did is we spent a lot of time developing it and figuring out how can we make this universal so that pretty much any case could be utilized in our program. And once we did that, you spend less time on actually analyzing and more time on just pressing a button that analyzes it all for you so you can actually utilize the information.
And I think too, what is unique about ours is, and I know there's a lot of wonderful tools out there, kind of similar to ours, and they're amazing. And I think that what they're doing is very similar to what we want as far as accomplishing those goals of saving time. But, we are practicing school psychologists and we use our program every day. And so we see through different cases and through different situations how this tool is used and how it can be improved. So, for example, like we've released our caseload management, improved caseload management, and we were plugging our students into the caseload management, and we already kind of are envisioning what else we could add to even improve it more. So, I think that's a pretty cool thing, and also we really want to make sure that it is not financially taxing on the subscriber, and so we wanted to make it as cost friendly as possible with still kind of reimbursing us for the time and the energy that we put into this, but really hoping that it's not really, really expensive.
Mhm.
Yeah. One of the things that I found, and I want to make sure that I was kind of seeing it correctly. Of course, I got onto Copy Paste Report and I subscribed and I wanted to see, how could this help me in my report writing as well as, being able to share with, I talk a lot about report writing and efficiency in my training. And one of the things that I think was interesting about the way that you guys set this up, going back to the actual term, you are having people enter in scores into this wonderful template, but then you're taking that information and you're copying and pasting it into your own personal template or district template. Whereas I think some other programs try and have the entire report writing shell within the document. And I think the way that this is set up, it makes it easier for people who are like, okay, yeah, but my district makes us write it in this way.
Mhm.
But share the tables and graphs. And of course, most of us get to do that in any way that we want to do that. So I'm curious, how was that decision making of, do we try and make this a report writing shell versus, no, we just want to give you the tables and graphs that everyone is looking for?
That's a great question. Part of it stemmed from the fact that, like you said, our school district had a shell. They wanted us to utilize the very expensive program that they paid for, and so that we could attach everything. And that's what we were doing. And so we were trying to build it so that anyone who has a very expensive program that their district has bought into already and is district wide, they could just attach them or they could add them as part of the report shell that they already have. And then another part of it was expense. We looked into doing like an online based system where we would literally have our own database where people would enter their students in and they would use it as a district program. And it was very, very cost heavy, like thousands and thousands of dollars per year. And the more users that you have, the more data that you have. So you have to pay more. And our goal in coming into this, we set like our monthly subscription is $10. Our annual is $96. That has been since day one in 2021. And it's currently in the same way, even though we have way more added to our program. We want our regular people that are in schools who are not making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to afford this and to be able to find it useful for them. And so in order to not go up to like $25 a month, for example, we decided that it's best to not have a report shell that people would go in.
Well, and the other thing is every state has different requirements as to what need in the reports, and we wanted to honor that. We also wanted to honor the fact that, we want, like, this is not a decision-making tool for you. It's not, going to do every single aspect of your job for you. So you have that clinical, not judgment, but like this, you can still kind of customize it to what you want in your practice. And so we found that that would be an easier way to do rather than having like a full-blown kind of report shell.
And to speak on that just a little more, since the users who are listening to this on the podcast are not going to be able to see, but you can kind of envision if you copy and pasted a table into a Word document, our font, for example, is a certain font, but you can select the table and change it to any font you want. You can change the size of the font. You can change the coloration of the table that we have. And the summary, you can go and add more information. So it's not like you copy the info that we have and that's just what you have to use. You get to go use your own clinical judgment and add additional things or match it to your district thing where maybe they like Times New Roman and then you just change that to that. So,
well, and then two, kind of speaking on the customization, one of the things, and to the clinical judgment piece, we didn't want to make a decision for whoever is using the program of what we consider as a weakness is whatever standard score or whatever scaled score. And so we made sure that people can choose that for themselves so that it's not we're making the decision for you. And so it can be customizable to your district, to your state, whatever it may be. And so we don't want to make that decision for anybody.
I love that. I don't know how many times I have conversations about the average range and what we want to call it and why one test calls it this and another test calls it this. And so I love that. It was one of the first things I noticed when I downloaded the program was that I got to say what was, below average and what was this. And again, thinking about all the different people who are going to be utilizing this program, that they can customize that to either something they personally feel is appropriate, or as we know, a lot of times our districts are telling us these different types of things. So I'm curious, what kind of feedback have you received from school psychs who have used this product?
There is absolutely nothing better than having somebody email us, like, you would send them their activation code or something like that. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. I cannot live without copy paste report. And it's like, oh, okay. We're glad that that is something that people feel. I mean, what else have we gotten?
Yeah, I think some of the feedback that we've utilized has been to improve the program. And a lot of it's just people asking like, hey, could you add this? Like my district would really like this to be the case. Can you add that? And we're like, oh, didn't even think about that. That's a really great idea. And most of the feedback is very like, would you be willing to add this rather than I don't like that feature, which has actually been really helpful because we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's add that. And then the next version that we come out with annually, we come out with like a 3.0, 4.0, et cetera. And then in between times, we do like a 3.2 or 3.3 little updates. And those are based on our users saying like, hey, I love this new tool that you added. Is there any way to add this additional feature? Because like we talked about, we have our own mindset of how this tool can be used, but there's so many practitioners and school psychologists across the universe, across the US that they use it in different ways. And then we can customize it to be even more like universally utilized.
Well, I know one of the things that's included in the different tables is a description of the subtest itself. And I remember personally when I decided to make that change to my own report template and put that within the table instead of describing each subtest, in the narrative below. And I remember how much time it took for me to think about, how do I want to explain this task? Do I like the explanation from the manual? Do I want to make it a little bit more parent friendly? And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that took so long. And then I was so thankful that I'd done it. And now every time I come across like a new tool, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to do that all over again. But that's something that, is included with all of the different tests that you guys have in your copy paste report. So I will say that is one of my favorite things about that is I don't have to, especially, it's 10:30 at night. You're finishing this report. That is not the time of like, how do I explain block design to a parent?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one of the things that we really wanted to focus on because we just, as, fellow school psychologists, just within each other, when you get a report as a clinician, where do you go? Do you go to the narrative and read everything? No, you flip back and you flip to the scores, to the chart, right? And so we thought, well, why can't we just combine the two? So you have your scores, you have the highlighted areas that are weaknesses or concerns, and you have a little summary at the end. So not only that it's parent friendly, but it's also clinician friendly. And so you don't have to go through all these words essentially to get to what you're looking for.
And that's why we added the feature, like you talked about how, like, for example, in CPR, if you change a weakness to be 80 and below, in the actual table, it will highlight scores that are 80 and below to be a light gray. And the reason we did that is so it pops out to parents, because what parents don't want is 30 different scores. And they're like, I don't know what any of this means. Just tell me what my kid needs.
Yeah.
So they can go to that light gray section and see what they struggle with. And then they can go to the summary and learn more information about it. And that's what we wanted, is an easy way for parents to look at these reports and really be able to utilize them instead of it just primarily being for clinicians.
Yeah, that's great. Well, given the sensitive nature of student data, how does copy paste report ensure data privacy and security?
Yes. You want me to talk about this?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So we utilize a program that basically locks it to your computer. And what it does is there's a system ID for every single computer, and it's unique only to that computer. No other computer will have that same system ID. So they download the program, they provide us the system ID, and then we activate the program, whatever their subscription is. If it's a year, we go a year out. If it's a month, we go a month out. And we have no access at all to the data that they have. Mm-hmm. Our only ability is to stop them from having another month renewal by not providing them a new activation key. But once we provided the activation key, they have it for that timeline. And we don't have any access to the program itself on their computer. It's also not able to be accessed by anyone else. So if they take their file on their computer and they send it to a colleague, it can't be opened. It can only be opened on that specific computer. So essentially, the only way that student data could be found or utilized is if somebody knew the password for that individual person's computer.
Okay.
And in that way, any program or any data, it would be, problematic because they could just find all your data on your computer.
Right.
The safest way, and it's not using any internet system, it doesn't store it in the cloud or anything. So it's only stored on that user's computer. And we have found that to be essentially the most compliant with the regulations.
That's wonderful. Well, what are your plans? I know you shared with me before we hit record that you just worked really hard to get this 3.0 version out, but as I know most people are already thinking, and then our next version is going to include. So what are some plans for future development of copy paste report?
Yeah, well, we already kind of talked about some additions that we're going to make to the caseload tool. But one thing I'm really excited is we hadn't really updated the parent interview or the caregiver interview questions and the narrative that it produces in quite some time. And that's something that we're going to be spending a lot of time on. and making it even better than what it is now. And I think that's as far as, and we do have a few measures that we're wanting to add.
Yeah, we have like a bank of measures that people ask us to add. And so, we add things we can in the time we have. And then during those little small updates, typically they're around Thanksgiving or winter break, because we have a little more time to do work, or spring break's another time when we typically release an update. But I think essentially what we're looking for is our users to provide us feedback. So there are some updates that we have in mind, but most of it's going to come from the now like 7 new tools that we added and seeing how people are using them and seeing if they want updates to the tools.
And one thing for me personally, like I said, I worked on ADOS very, very hard. And I kind of made it the way I would want to kind of utilize it and, generate the information. But I would really love some feedback from people who do utilize the ADOS to see if the way that it's right now is
Mhm.
there potential? Are there any updates that I can make to it? Because it is such a unique tool. And so, yeah, I'm always looking for feedback on that.
Another revision that we're looking to do, we were hoping to get it out for the 3.0, but I think we wanted to make sure it was really solid before releasing it, was in the actual summary of each of the tables. We want to, as you know, like ChatGPT is now doing these things where it's like, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Right.
Like we kind of implement some of that in our summaries so that maybe they understand the more technical components in the actual table, but we want the summary to be even lower level education than it is currently so that they can really understand the basics. So I don't have to have somebody who has a high school education to understand what the summary says. They might have no education from maybe their country that they're from, or they didn't have that growing up in the US. And we want to be fair to everyone and have very basic information. So that's hopefully a thing we'll add in 3.1.
I think that's incredible. I know I've looked into things like the readability level of our reports and the grade level. And I remember the first time that I really looked at that for one of my reports, and it was something like grade like 15 point something. And, my first moment was, that's pretty awesome. And then my very quickly was, who's supposed to read this and understand it? Like, I'm not turning this into my university professors anymore. And so looking at what the research says about, what kind of readability level are we looking for and those grade levels, it was a lot lower than the way that I was writing. And so each time I write a report, I do check that and just hope I'm getting closer and closer to that goal. It's hard to change that overnight. So I'm glad it's something that will be, in a future version of copy paste report, because I think that's really important when you're thinking about who are the actual consumers of our report. And it's not our university professors anymore. Of course, are the family members.
Exactly.
Well, what advice would you give to other school psychologists who are interested in developing their own tools or products?
I think through our journey, we've kind of had to be mindful of how we utilize those tools and really think comprehensively about how others might utilize their
Mhm.
tools. So, you know, those that are trying to do something like that, just first play around with that, kind of find what you're comfortable with, gather feedback from others. So we had a lot of feedback over the years, even before we created a copy paste report from our team members and all that stuff. And yeah, just be open to feedback and don't think of it as criticism, but really as feedback to
Mhm.
improve whatever you're working on.
I would echo what Lina said. I think the biggest thing I would recommend is you're going to have spent a lot of time on this tool, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, thought, and you care about it. Like it's your baby. And then you're going to have somebody who's going to send you an email that's going to totally tear your heart apart and say, like, I think that you could make it better this way. And really taking that, and instead of being like, well, they don't know what they're talking about, being like, maybe there's something to this that we need to look more into, and taking that feedback and actually utilizing it rather than just being offended and saying, well, I just won't have that customer as somebody that's a part of our business. There might be something that can really improve your process by listening.
I love that. Well, for school psychologists who want to learn more about the copy paste report, where's the best place that they can go?
Yeah, that's an easy answer right there. So it's copypastereport.com. You can also follow us. Probably the second place would be on Facebook, which is just Copy Paste Report. You look in there, we have our own business page. We do upload YouTube videos. Most of those are going to be tutorials. Within our program, we have a tutorial for every single measure and every single tool. But if
It's
you,
housed on YouTube.
that is housed on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn more and kind of see what it looks like, we do have a lot of potential users reach out and say, hey, do you have examples of this? And we'll send them some YouTube videos so they can get an idea of how you can actually utilize the program and what it looks like when you're using it. So I'd say those are probably the three best. Instagram as well, yeah.
Try.
Anything through Meta, I guess.
I remember when I first started on all these pieces. I get it too.
Mhm.
All right. Well, we'll make sure to include all of those links, including both the Facebook and the Instagram accounts in the show notes. So anyone who is interested are able to just quickly head on over. And it sounds like if you look at any of the information and you have follow-up questions, both of these people are very amazing and being able to provide that extra bit of information before someone makes that decision to try out this thing. So I thank you in advance for all of that help and support you give for potential customers. Well, this podcast is called the Prepared School Psychologist. When you think of that term prepared, how would you say your tool copy paste report helps people feel more prepared in their role?
Well, I mean, it is a very comprehensive tool that you can utilize in literally every aspect of your job, from being able to have a score report, enter the score, and enter all the scores and have everything done and ready for your report within minutes. So that helps a ton. You're busy, you're getting this. And instead of spending, 20, 30 minutes, you're able to do that within minutes. From that to being able to analyze behavioral data in a very comprehensive way that really is meaningful and could really provide some good input on interventions, whether interventions are working,
Yeah.
anything else.
I think one of the biggest ones that we just recently revised is our caseload tool. You say the word prepared. What I already have done just for the school year is I took all of my caseload information of my 2 buildings that I have, and I entered them into the caseload that we have for our program. And already I have things that show me when my due dates are. I have things that show me when I need to get consent for evaluations. I have things that in Kansas, we have what's called developmental delay, and they can't be in that category at the age of 10. So you have to consider a new category before then. And our caseload highlights the kids that are getting close to that age and are currently under developmental delay. So I already know what kids I need to reevaluate based on them aging out of that category. So I'm totally prepared for the school year based on that caseload management tool. So I hope others get to use that as well and start feeling prepared for this school year.
And our teammates are going to feel really prepared too.
Yes.
Your teammates must love working with you because you're like, I've already put it all in. I already know when all these dates are, right? We don't have to worry about any of these pieces. Was there anything about your copy paste report that you wanted to share that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet?
One of the things I wanted to mention is we love working with districts. When we first started this is not anything that we ever thought would be a concept we ever had to entertain, but we have had a lot of districts reach out to us, and we actually have a pricing system that's even more discounted for districts. And the longer you commit, the more of a discount. So we want that to be readily available for them. And so we encourage districts to reach out to us because the cost of it is going to be even less than if you just purchase it for every individual school psychologist.
That's incredible.
I think the other thing I would mention that hasn't been mentioned yet is that we utilize and provide a bell curve for everyone that uses the program. And it was developed by Joel Schneider, who's an expert in the field. And essentially it allows for parents to understand on any cognitive, academic, speech language. Did I miss anything? I think those are the main ones. Maybe like an occupational therapy measure. all of those measures are going to have the same range description. So if you have an 82 on the WISC and you have an 82 on the WJ, they're going to say whatever the low average. Okay. So let's say, but in the manual, it might say below average, but those are all just terms that they decided on. But the publishing company. So a parent is going to understand across universally all of our measures in one single report, an 82 is always going to be in the low average range. And it's not going to be a parent saying, why is it low average on this measure, but below average on this measure? That doesn't make sense to me. Are they measuring different things? So that's one thing for users to know, is that it's universally that way. The only thing is it's not that way on our social emotional measures, purely because we use the descriptors like clinically significant and at risk and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, once again, another fun conversation I know school psychologists have all the time, not only within being consistent within the tools that we use, but as you mentioned, across the entire team. So I love that that is part of the system, so that as a team, we are being consistent and, again, trying to reduce the frustration or the confusion that sometimes happens because of these situations with the families that we're working with. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both for being here, and thank you both for having the brains that you do to create such an incredible tool. And with this, I know you had mentioned neither one of you are business, people at the beginning, because we're school psychologists always first. But I just want to thank you for all the time and effort that you have been putting in over the last couple of years to create and provide such an amazing tool for school psychologists and other team members to use. So thank you.
Thank you for having us on.
Well, I hope everyone found today's episode of the Prepared School Psych Podcast informative. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more school psychologists
episode
like you.
of the Prepared School Psych Podcast. And I hope
today.
today's discussion equipped you not just with knowledge, but also the confidence to take action. Remember, every conversation we have and every resource we share builds a bridge towards a more inclusive and empowering learning landscape for our students. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more insightful conversations and resources to support your journey. Share this podcast with colleagues. We would love it if you would also rate and review the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Just a reminder, everyone, the information and advice provided in this podcast are for guidance purposes only, and all listeners are required to follow both federal and state law and their own school district guidelines and policies. Thank you.